Violence is never the answer is something that you say back in high school during one of those Socratic seminar discussions so that your teacher can go, "Oh wow, how profound, you get a gold star." But that is not reality. Just wait a second, alright, before you do something crazy, let me explain. This is Bob. Bob wants to murder your family. You tell Bob, "Hey, please don't murder my family." Bob says, "I'm gonna murder your family." You say, "But Bob, murder isn't good, and what about the sanctity of life and morality and all that stuff?" "I don't care, I'm gonna murder your family." Now, let me ask you a question. Are you going to let Bob murder your family? Or are you going to pick up a gun and fight back? I really do hope you choose the second option, not because you are salivating at the mouth to turn someone into an oversized bag of fertilizer, but because if you don't do something, then there will be dire consequences. And while that is an example on the micro scale, you can extrapolate that example to be on the macro scale, applicable to conflicts between groups and nations. The idea that wars must be shunned at all costs under all circumstances is a very naive way of looking at the world. The world isn't a Disney movie. Many times people that wish you serious harm are not gonna have an epiphany after a strongly worded scolding. And let me make this clear, I am vehemently anti-war. However, to be anti-war for the reasons already stated does not mean to be against all wars for the simple reason that they are wars. That is way too dogmatic. And while I hope for a brighter future without wars, at the present time, I am still operating based off of reality. To be anti-war is not to be just against war or violence in general. Scenes showing that war is violent and gruesome itself is a crucial element to many anti-war films, but it alone does not make an anti-war movie anti-war, because again, wars can be justified. To be anti-war is to be against unjust wars and violence, to be against war tourism, to be against profiteers, racketeers, and wars started under false pretenses. Warfare is a movie set in the Iraq War, which follows a group of Navy SEALs in a mission gone wrong based on the actual experiences of Navy SEAL Ray Mendoza, who co-directed this movie. And if this was a movie only about his experiences and that of his teams in Iraq, then I wouldn't be making this video. However, because this is supposedly an anti-war movie, well, there are some serious problems with this film. Let me just address the elephant in the room. The Iraq War was started under false pretenses of weapons of mass destruction that did not exist. Now, I know that might have just enraged a lot of people watching this, so I will make a deal. I will take down this video, offer a formal apology, and backtrack everything I said under one condition. You show me the genuine weapons of mass destruction that Iraq had, doing something that has not been able to be done so far. And if you can't do that, then there's really nothing to argue about. I bring all this up, well, one, because this movie is set during the Second Gulf War, aka the Iraq War, but two, because all the quote-unquote reasons for going to Iraq sets a slam dunk opportunity for warfare to send a very clear anti-war message and deliver on being an anti-war movie. I am on my hands and knees begging right now. Just listen, just hear me out before leaving a crazy ass comment. So, is Warfare even supposed to be an anti-war movie? Well, when director Alex Garland, while being interviewed by Empire magazine, was literally asked if Warfare was supposed to be an anti-war movie, he states, and I quote, "I would say it's not possible to show war in any way that resembles what it really is in terms of its brutality and violence and emptiness without it being anti-war." The co-director and one of the lead actors also says something similar in the response, and I'll put the quotes up there so you can read them. So the TLDR is, yes? Look, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm stupid or that anyone else is. It is very apparent that this movie, also for the reasons I'll get into, was never set out to be an anti-war film. However, once there was some serious backlash from the public about this being a disguised propaganda film, the people involved in this film, or at least marketing this film, tried to spin this movie to be like more anti-war. The problem with this is that when asked to explain why or how this movie is anti-war, the responses are some variation of, well, it shows war to be very gruesome and violent. Okay, sure, but as I said in the intro, showing how terrible violence is in itself is not anti-war, because wars again and violence can be justified. And remember, the question that was asked to the director and the co-director was not if the movie contained anti-war elements. The question was if the movie was set out to be an anti-war movie. And so the answer given was essentially a hesitant Yes, it is. I will treat it as an anti-war movie because of that, as you cannot have both a movie set out to be and not to be an anti-war movie in the totality of its messaging. And a reminder, this is not a movie review. If you want my thoughts on the movie, I thought it was a well-written movie as a movie with good tension and worth a watch, but this video is explaining why Warfare fails to be a good anti-war movie. So how does this movie address the looming question, the question of the validity of this war, the morals behind conducting such a war? Does the movie give some prologue that mentions about the lack of WMDs or the reasons for going to Iraq? Nope. Not a single scene, not a single phrase, not a single line. This movie quite literally never addresses why the SEALs or America is even in Iraq in the first place. There are no mentions of WMDs, or lack of WMDs for that matter. And I have to say this again, if this was just a movie about this team's experiences in Iraq, then sure, I can maybe excuse the lack of mentioning of the reasons for going to war, although that it would be still kind of weird, but this is not. This is supposed to be an anti-war movie, a quote-unquote anti-war movie that does not address at all the reasons for going to Iraq is crazy. So crazy that I could just end the video right here. I think I made my point about how you can't call yourself an anti-war movie and then do absolutely nothing to address the elephant in the room. But I'm not going to end it there. Instead, I'm going to go through the entire movie and explain why scenes work and don't work in its anti-war messaging. And not only that, I'm going to explain to you places that could have been made to send a much clearer anti-war message without completely rewriting the entire movie. So the first third of the movie, we see SEALs occupy the home of an Iraqi family to use as an observation post, and then for the next half hour they are pissing in bottles, dipping, and throwing one-liners. Now, yes, I understand that this is to establish the setting and dynamic and all that, but it is a series of wasted opportunities. This would have been the perfect time to have the SEALs chat a little bit about why they're there in the first place. I mean, there was so much downtime, but instead of any lines discussing the validity of the war or more serious subjects like that, we get a line about smoking quote-unquote jihadis who probably stole a hoodie. I'm not joking about that. That's an actual line in the movie. There's lines about needing more dip, which, I mean, okay, it's realistic, but there's still that elephant in the room that you haven't addressed. There was absolutely time to say anything, literally anything about, again, WMDs that have not yet been found. Missed opportunities. And during this time, we also see two Iraqi soldiers, one of which is a translator with these SEALs. Now, for the 3 lines they had, were kind of decent. You see them discussing amongst themselves, showing reservations about the Americans and what they were doing. There's one scene where they're talking about how the Americans were foolhardy for wanting to leave the building and go back on a street surrounded by enemy combatants, and the Iraqis were correct. However, the focus of the film still, for the most part, glossed over the Iraqis with the Americans. The entire time the SEALs are occupying the house, there's an Iraqi family literally being held at gunpoint and 2 Iraqi soldiers with them. This was a perfect opportunity to show how the war impacts the lives of these, this family, but as well as other families, and these Iraqi soldiers. I mean, they're all literally in the same house as these SEALs. Please don't tell me you couldn't have at least another scene written with this family in it. But again, the movie fails to deliver. In fact, the Iraqis throughout this entire movie are literally just used as NPCs. Some might argue that, well, this is because it's a movie about SEALs. But Iraqis are human beings in their own goddamn country. At least give the Iraqis more fucking screen time, especially if you're going to make a quote-unquote anti-war movie. So half an hour into the movie or so, the SEALs get a grenade thrown in the room and they get peppered by shrapnel and a short firefight breaks out. The scene is well done. I'm not here to hate on the movie, and I will give credit where credit is due. We see flashes of opposing enemy combatants. We see the panic in the SEALs. There's no stupid moment where a SEAL does some Hollywood Rambo shit and hip fires a machine gun and mows down like 50 people. Now you see the SEALs like stumbling around, they forget shit, they leave gear in one room and they grab the gear and they bump into doorways. This is a step in the right direction to show that these men are people, not superhumans, and I applaud the movie for doing so. Showing the vulnerability of frogmen, marine soldiers, or whoever it may be alone does not make a movie anti-war, but it is an important element in anti-war movies. So the frogmen call in exfil and they are ready to push out after popping smoke, and this scene is also well done. You have close-ups of these men and they look nervous, they're worried, they are hesitant, they look scared. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I don't know who wouldn't be scared. By scared, I mean that they are humans. And again, I applaud the movie for showing this. So using smoke as concealment, they leave, and just as the front of the stag is about to enter their armored vehicle, it is hit by an explosion. Whether it's an RPG, ID, it is never explained, but the aftermath is sudden and jarring. There is no heroic music. There's no quirky little stupid ass fucking dialogue before everything happens. It is sudden and violent. This is another element of anti-war movies that is present, and I applaud the movie for including. And yes, while in history there have been last stands that have been immortalized and documented, the vast majority of casualties and deaths in war are not dramatic. They can be a guy who's taking a shit and then struck by a random piece of shrapnel. It can be a soldier ready to enter a combat zone and hit with a stray round and killed without even understanding where it came from. There is no glory, no Hollywood spectacle, and this movie shows that very well. One moment they are ready to extract, and the next moment you have bodies all over the place and frogmen and Iraqis in shock. And then the movie misses another opportunity. One of the Iraqi soldiers is just eviscerated by the explosion, while the other Iraqi soldier hobbles out of view. And that is the last time you see him. There is like a brief picture at the end of the film with their real life counterparts, but the movie never explains what happened to the Iraqi dude that hobbles away. And keep in mind, these two Iraqis were leading the stack and took the brunt of the explosion. This is what I mean by the movie treating Iraqis as NPCs. Did this so-called anti-war movie not see a reason to at least show anything about what happened to this Iraqi soldier after being blown up? The movie could have shown some conflicting emotions about helping Americans while being Iraqis themselves. Anything, literally anything. So this explosion happens and we see the SEALs in shock. And in one scene, one of the SEALs is dragging another critically injured SEAL, and he is pissed off that the rest of the team isn't helping him but just huddled up in the building they came from scared. Hey, good scene for not making the SEALs Supermen. There's also a scene where one SEAL tries to like stab morphine to the wounded SEAL and then he stabbed himself instead. Again, solid scene for showing these men as people. Now, this is the part most people point to as what makes this film anti-war. For literally the rest of the film, we see two wounded SEALs screaming on the ground as they are critically wounded. This scene is gruesome. This scene most definitely does not make me want to take shrapnel anywhere. We see the immense amount of pain these men are in. But you want to know why it doesn't work as anti-war messaging? Because this entire film ignores why these men are in Iraq in the first place. What are these men suffering for? What are these men dying for? What are these men even doing here? And yes, I know that in the military, you don't exactly get to tear up your orders and go if you don't like them. But this isn't some excuse for why the movie doesn't mention at all for the reasons for going to Iraq. If this film was set in my house, where I hear some strange noises at night, go downstairs, find a home intruder, and blow his balls off with my rifle, and he spends the next 20 minutes screaming in pain while we both wait for an ambulance, it would be the same fucking shit. That might sound like an extreme comparison, but remember, it is the reasons for the violence. It is the reasons for going to war that make something anti-war or not anti-war. That home intruder might be in an immense amount of pain. That home intruder may have a family, and I certainly would not feel good about dumping rounds into him, but as he is on the ground screaming in pain, at least I can feel some comfort knowing that he didn't go upstairs and potentially execute my family. Okay, I think, or at least I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Showing that violence is violent in itself is not anti-war. So now we get to the third and final part of the film. An extraction team is sent in to rescue the wounded SEALs. We have a good moment where the officer in charge is asked what they should be doing, and he responds with, I don't know. But the rescue team is another missed opportunity. The rescue team is simply shown as a typical Hollywood shootout. Now, I know some people are going to say, whoa, how can you show a shootout not to be, well, a generic shootout? I mean, it's obviously just two groups of people shooting at each other. And so I will turn to an actual anti-war film and one of my favorites, Stalingrad. There's a scene where a German soldier is told to guard a position and shoot anyone that moves. A figure runs in front of him and he is shot by this German soldier who quickly realizes he just shot his friend. He is crying in shock after realizing what he has done, when then two Soviet soldiers stumble onto the scene. They don't shoot the Germans despite the German begging to be killed. The Russians, obviously feeling pity, tell the German to get out of there. Suddenly, the Russians who were trying to spare the German are surrounded by more Germans, who then gun them down without a second thought. The German soldier that shot his friend is still begging to be shot as his friends tell him that shit happens in war and not to feel bad before leaving. The German soldier is again left alone with the dying words of the Russian who didn't shoot him out of pity and now is dying himself. I get that Stalingrad and World War II and Iraq are completely different wars with completely different circumstances. The point of me bringing up this scene is that it is an example of how war movies can be properly done and show character without the need for some sort of extensive character development and building beforehand. So anyways, a generic Hollywood shootout breaks out, and after some back and forth and some waiting, the SEALs are ready to extract. Again, credit where credit is due. There are particular scenes such as this one where he is shooting at a running enemy combatant from the back of a vehicle and he is missing. Good. They aren't doing the 10 shot, 10 kill Hollywood shit. And so before leaving, there are Iraqis on the rooftop, and so the SEALs ask for their armor support to demolish the second floor. Remember, this is somebody's home. Imagine if some random dudes came into your house, blew up your lifelong possessions, and left. And you know what the only response from the Iraqi family is? Why? Why is this anti-war movie glossing over one of the most devastating effects of war, the effect on civilians? After the SEALs leave, the father or brother, he does refer to the woman in this family as sister, cautiously walks out of the room they were being held hostage in and into his destroyed, trashed, blood-ridden house. And what does he say? Come out, they're gone, don't be afraid. Hey, how about these Americans trashed my fucking house and didn't leave me with any compensation for destroying my lifelong possessions? Or how about this line? Hey, why do these Americans think they can violate my family and blow up half my house like they're in charge of the world? You know what? The movie definitely knows that what the Americans did was kind of fucked up, because you have one scene where they do say sorry, but it's very brief and you would almost miss it if you weren't paying attention, right? Instead, they wrote the most lukewarm lines that kind of imply what the Americans did to this family was fucked up, but that is all. And that is really the theme of this movie. As a quote-unquote anti-war movie, a bunch of missed opportunities, half measures, and people praising this to be an anti-war movie for some reason while obviously not understanding what anti-war even means. I want to end this with a personal story. Also, thank you for making this far. I think it will be really obvious when reading the comments to see who actually bothered watching this entire video before leaving a crazy ass comment. On a military base, there isn't just active military. There are many civilian workers, contractors, families of military, and veterans. In my time in the Marines, I have talked to many Iraq war veterans. Sometimes I meet them when in the PX or when pumping some of that tax-free gas on base. I knew they were Iraq war veterans because, well, some of them wore Iraq war veteran hats, while others I found out by just chatting with. I do enjoy talking to people. The most anti-war people I have met are Iraq war veterans. And while I'm certainly not or trying to speak for everyone or claim to have met every single Iraq war veteran, obviously I haven't, I have noticed similarities. Many of these veterans saw combat, lost buddies, and or were wounded themselves, but they didn't go away with it with some sort of gung-ho mentality. Instead, they were left rightfully bitter and disillusioned. They lost buddies and limbs. But for what? They wear Iraq war veteran hats not because they enjoy going to a country for a war that was started under false pretenses, but for the memories of the buddies they lost while caught in the military-industrial complex. They are not anti-war because they hate people in the military. And yes, I know there are still crazy people in the military, but like I said in the start of the intro, the military does serve a purpose because we do not live in a Disneyland. We do not live in a fantasy world. The question is if the military is used for the right and just purposes. Finally, I want to leave you with a quote from two-time Medal of Honor recipient and Marine Corps veteran Smedley Butler. I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service as a member of this country's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. I served in all commissioned ranks from second lieutenant to major general. And during that period, I spent most of my time being a high-class muscleman for big business, for Wall Street, and for the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. Thank you for watching, and if there are any other movies you want me to talk about, please let me know. Like and subscribe if your heart desires, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye.